Imagine taking on a job as simple as delivering food, only to find yourself entangled in a terrifying ordeal that you never saw coming. What starts as a routine task quickly spirals into a nightmare that shatters your sense of safety and normalcy. This isn't just another scary story. It's a true account of how an ordinary delivery became the catalyst for a relentless horror that haunted me long after the job was done. As you dive into this tale, prepare yourself for the chilling reality that sometimes the scariest encounters happen in the most unexpected places. In today's fast-paced world, the convenience of food delivery has become almost second nature. We hardly give it a second thought. Order what you want, and within an hour it's at your doorstep. But for those of us who work as delivery drivers, each order can lead to stepping into the unknown, venturing into unfamiliar places, and interacting with strangers who may not always have good intentions. For a single mother like me, working as a delivery driver seemed like a straightforward way to earn extra money while juggling the responsibilities of raising my daughter. Little did I know that one fateful summer evening, what should have been just another routine delivery would turn my life upside down. The order was for a house in a picturesque suburban neighborhood, the kind of place that looks like it belongs on a movie set. The streets were pristine, the lawns meticulously manicured, and the houses stood grand and inviting, bathed in the warm glow of the setting sun. It was the kind of neighborhood where you'd expect nothing but peace and tranquility. As I pulled up to the house, I felt a brief sense of calm, confident that this would be a quick and easy delivery. I followed my usual routine. I placed the food on the doorstep, took a photo to confirm the delivery, and turned to head back to my car. But as I was about to reach my car, I noticed a woman emerging from the house across the street. At first, I thought she was just a curious neighbor, maybe someone who wanted to greet a newcomer. But as she got closer, I realized something was off. Her face was twisted in anger, and her eyes glared at me with an intensity that made my stomach churn. She was clearly upset, but I had no idea why. As she approached, she began shouting at me, accusing me of intruding and demanding to know what I was doing in her neighborhood. The suddenness of her outburst caught me completely off guard. I tried to explain that I was simply delivering food to her neighbor, but she wasn't interested in hearing my explanation. Her voice grew louder and more hostile with each passing second, and I could feel the situation escalating beyond my control. What had started as a peaceful street now felt oppressive and suffocating. A few neighbors, drawn by the commotion, began peering out from their windows, watching the confrontation unfold. My heart pounded in my chest as I hurried back to my car, the woman's accusations still ringing in my ears. She continued to shout at me, her words sharp and relentless, as I fumbled with my keys, desperate to get away. Finally, I managed to start the car and drive off, her figure receding in the rearview mirror, yet her presence lingering in my mind. The encounter left me shaken, but I tried to convince myself that it was just a bizarre, isolated incident. I hoped that once I got home, I could put it behind me and move on. But as I drove home, the unease I felt only grew stronger. I couldn't stop replaying the incident in my head, questioning what could have triggered such an intense reaction from a stranger. Was it simply a misunderstanding, or was there something deeper and more sinister at play? The questions swirled in my mind, but I tried to push them aside as I pulled into my driveway. I was home now, where I should have felt safe and secure with my daughter. But as I stepped inside and locked the door behind me, the feeling of dread that had settled in my stomach refused to dissipate. I spent the rest of the evening trying to distract myself, throwing myself into household tasks and keeping busy with my daughter. But no matter what I did, I couldn't shake the lingering sense of fear that had taken root in my mind. The woman's angry face, her harsh words, and the intensity of her gaze haunted me, replaying in my thoughts like a broken record. I found myself constantly glancing out the window, half expecting to see her standing there, watching me. I told myself I was being paranoid, that it was just a one-time incident, and that everything would be fine in the morning. But deep down, I knew that something had changed, and that night, as I lay in bed, I struggled to fall asleep, my mind racing with worry. If this story has already sent a chill down your spine, make sure to hit that like button and share it with friends who appreciate a good scare. Trust me, things are about to get even more unsettling. The next morning, I woke up feeling exhausted and on edge. The events of the previous day still weighed heavily on my mind, but I tried to push through, focusing on my usual routine. I got my daughter ready for school, packed her lunch, and drove her to the bus stop. But even as I went through the motions, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. I found myself scanning the faces of the other parents, wondering if any of them had seen the woman from the night before. But no one seemed out of the ordinary, and I told myself I was overreacting. I just needed to get through the day and everything would be fine. I spent the day running errands, trying to distract myself, but the unease lingered, gnawing at the back of my mind. Every time I left a store or turned a corner, I half expected to see her there, waiting for me. My heart would race with anxiety, only to slow down when I realized it was just my imagination. But the fear was real, and it was starting to take its toll. By the time I picked up my daughter from school, I was mentally and emotionally drained. All I wanted to do was go home and forget about the whole thing. That evening, after dinner, I decided to relax and watch some TV, hoping it would help me unwind. My daughter was playing in her room, and the house was quiet, offering a brief respite from the chaos in my mind. But just as I was starting to feel a semblance of peace, a loud, aggressive knock on the door shattered the silence. My heart leaped into my throat as I froze, staring at the door in disbelief. Who could it be at this hour? With trembling hands, I slowly approached the door and peered through the peephole. What I saw made my blood run cold. It was her, the same woman from the day before, the one who had accosted me on the street. But this time, her face was twisted with even more anger, and in her hand, she held a large stone. Panic surged through me as I realized that she had somehow found out where I lived. Had she followed me home? How long had she been watching me? The questions flooded my mind, but there was no time to think. I knew I had to act quickly. As I stood there, paralyzed with fear, she began pounding on the door, demanding that I open up. Her voice, laced with venom, echoed through the hallway, sending chills down my spine. I knew I couldn't open the door. Whatever she wanted, it couldn't be good. Summoning every ounce of courage I had left, I shouted through the door that I had called the police. For a moment, there was silence, and I dared to hope that she would leave. But instead, I heard the sickening sound of the stone smashing against the door, followed by her retreating footsteps. I waited in the darkness, my breath coming in ragged gasps, until I was sure she was gone. Then, with shaking hands, I grabbed my phone and dialed 911, barely able to keep my voice steady as I explained what had happened. The police arrived within minutes, their flashing lights casting eerie shadows across the walls. They searched the area, but there was no sign of her. After taking my statement, they reassured me that they would keep an eye on the neighborhood. But there wasn't much else they could do. As the officers left, I was once again alone in the house, the silence now oppressive and suffocating. I tried to return to the couch, to find some semblance of normalcy. But the fear that had taken root in my heart refused to let go. Every creak of the house, every rustle of the wind outside made me jump. I couldn't shake the feeling that she was still out there, watching, waiting for another chance to strike. The night dragged on, and sleep was out of the question. I sat there, staring at the door, wondering how my life had taken such a terrifying turn in just a few short hours. The days that followed were a blur of anxiety and fear. I found myself constantly looking over my shoulder, scanning the faces of everyone I passed, searching for any sign of her. The once peaceful routine of dropping my daughter off at school and running errands now felt like a dangerous game of hide and seek. My heart pounded every time I left the house, and the anxiety gnawed at me, making it impossible to relax. Then, a week later, while grocery shopping, my worst fears were confirmed. I saw her again. She was standing at the end of the aisle, her eyes locked on me with that same unsettling intensity. She didn't say a word, didn't make a move, just watched me as I stood frozen in place. My mind screamed at me to run, to get away from her as fast as I could, but my body refused to cooperate. Finally, I managed to break free of the paralysis and hurried out of the store, abandoning my cart and rushing to my car. But the encounters didn't stop there. Over the next few days, I saw her several more times, once while driving through town and another time near my daughter's school. Each time, she didn't approach, just watched, her presence a constant reminder that I was no longer safe. Desperate for some kind of explanation, I confided in a friend who was married to a police officer. I hoped he could provide some insight, or at least help me understand what was happening. He listened patiently as I recounted the events, his expression growing more serious with each passing moment. When I finished, he tried to reassure me, suggesting that it might just be a series of unfortunate coincidences, that I was more aware of her now because of the initial encounter. But deep down, I knew that wasn't the case. This wasn't a coincidence, it was a pattern, one that was becoming increasingly dangerous. The anxiety that had been gnawing at me began to consume my every thought. I found myself constantly looking over my shoulder, unable to shake the feeling that she was always there, lurking just out of sight. I started taking different routes home, avoiding certain areas of town where I had seen her before, but nothing seemed to help. The fear had taken root deep inside me, and no matter what I did, I couldn't escape it. Even when I was home, I felt like a prisoner in my own house, constantly checking the windows and doors, making sure everything was locked and secure. But the sense of safety that I once felt in my own home had been shattered, replaced by a constant state of fear and paranoia. Every night, as I lay in bed, my mind would race with thoughts of what could happen next. I imagined her breaking into my house, waiting for me outside, or worse, harming my daughter. The fear was overwhelming, and I knew I couldn't live like this forever. I started looking into security systems, cameras, anything that could give me some peace of mind. But no matter what I did, the fear lingered, a dark cloud that hung over every aspect of my life. What do you think? Is this just a case of bad luck, or is something more sinister at play? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your theories might just help me figure out what's going on. Just when I thought the situation couldn't get any worse, it did. About a week after the grocery store incident, I was outside in my front yard, pulling weeds while my daughter was at school. The sun was shining, and for the first time in days, I felt a small sense of peace returning. The familiar routine of gardening was soothing, helping me momentarily forget about the woman who had been haunting my thoughts. But that peace was shattered in an instant. I suddenly felt a presence behind me, and when I turned around, my heart stopped. There she was, standing just a few feet away, holding another stone in her hand. Her eyes were filled with a crazed fury, and her voice was laced with venom as she hissed, "You're a monster for calling the cops. You're the one trespassing." I was completely caught off guard, crouched down in the dirt, utterly defenseless. My mind raced, trying to figure out what to do, but fear had me frozen in place. She took a step closer, raising the stone as if she was about to strike. Pure instinct kicked in, and I scrambled to my feet, sprinting toward the house as fast as I could. I heard the stone hit the ground behind me, missing me by mere inches. My only thought was to get inside, to lock the door and call for help. I didn't stop running until I was inside, slamming the door shut and locking it with trembling hands. My breath came in ragged gasps as I grabbed my phone and dialed 911. my voice shaking as I told the dispatcher what had happened. This time, when the police arrived, they didn't just patrol the area, they took immediate action. They found her hiding in the bushes near my house and finally arrested her. As they led her away in handcuffs, I felt a wave of relief wash over me, but it was tinged with lingering fear. I later found out that she had a history of severe mental illness, something that explained her erratic and dangerous behavior. While it was a relief to know she wouldn't be bothering me anymore, the entire experience had left me scarred. I couldn't believe how quickly a simple delivery job had turned into a living nightmare. Even now, with her behind bars, I still feel uneasy. The fear she instilled in me lingers, a constant reminder of how vulnerable we can be in the face of someone else's madness. I find myself double-checking the locks on my doors, peering through the windows before stepping outside, and avoiding certain parts of town where I fear she might reappear. The rational part of my mind knows she's locked away, but the trauma of those encounters has left a mark that won't easily fade. My daughter has noticed the change in me, too. She asks why I'm always so jumpy, why I check the windows and doors so often. I don't know how to explain it to her, how to make her understand that sometimes the world is a lot scarier than it seems. I've tried to go back to normal, to resume our usual routines, but there's a part of me that's always on high alert now, always waiting for the next threat to appear. My friends and family have been supportive, but there's only so much they can do. They try to reassure me, telling me that it's over, that I'm safe now. But they didn't live through it. They don't understand the lingering fear that comes from being hunted, from feeling like prey in your own life. I've considered moving, starting fresh in a new place where I can leave all of this behind. But the thought of uprooting my daughter, of leaving behind the home we've built, is daunting. And deep down, I know that the fear will follow me, no matter where I go. I've started seeing a therapist, trying to work through the trauma, but it's a slow process. The nightmares are the worst, reliving those moments of terror over and over again, waking up in a cold sweat, heart pounding. My therapist says it will take time, that healing is a journey, not a destination. But some days it feels like I'll never get there, like I'm stuck in this nightmare with no way out. I've also found solace in online support groups, connecting with others who have gone through similar experiences. It helps to know I'm not alone, that others understand the fear and the anxiety that have become a part of my daily life. Sharing my story, hearing theirs, it's a small comfort, but it's something. For now, I'm taking it one day at a time, trying to rebuild the sense of safety and security that was shattered that night. It's not easy, and some days are better than others. But I'm determined to get through this, for my daughter's sake as much as my own. I've learned that the world can be a scary place, but I've also learned that I'm stronger than I thought. I survived, and that means I can keep going, no matter how hard it gets. I wish I could say that the fear is gone, that I've moved on from the events that unfolded. But the truth is, it's something that will stay with me for a long time. It's changed the way I see the world, the way I interact with others, and the way I approach every situation. I'm more cautious now, more aware of my surroundings, and less trusting of strangers. It's not the way I want to live, but it's the reality of what happened. There are moments when I feel like I'm finally getting back to normal, when the memories fade into the background and I can go about my day without the constant sense of dread. But then something will trigger a flashback, a sound, a sight, a smell, and I'm right back in that moment, heart racing, palms sweating, struggling to catch my breath. It's a cycle that I'm learning to live with, one that I hope will become less frequent as time goes on. Through all of this, I've come to realize the importance of community, of having people to lean on when things get tough. My friends, my family, even the strangers in the support groups. They've all played a role in helping me cope with the aftermath of this experience. And while I still have a long way to go, I know that I'm not alone in this journey. There are others who have faced similar challenges, who have their own stories of fear and survival, and together, we're finding ways to heal. I've also started journaling, writing down my thoughts and feelings as a way to process everything that's happened. It's been therapeutic, giving me a space to express the emotions that I sometimes struggle to articulate. It's a way to make sense of the chaos, to put my experiences into words, and to find a sense of closure, even if it's just temporary. As I move forward, I'm learning to take things one day at a time. Some days are good, others not so much, but I'm trying to focus on the positives, on the progress I've made, and on the strength I've found within myself. It's a journey, and I'm taking it step by step, knowing that healing is not a straight line, but a series of ups and downs, of victories and setbacks. And while the road ahead may be long, I'm determined to keep moving forward, to find peace and reclaim the sense of safety that was taken from me. If this story resonated with you, if it made you think twice about the world around you, please consider subscribing to Nightmare Narratives and hitting the bell icon so you never miss out on another story like this one. Stay safe out there.